Welcome to Talking with Yourself, a podcast designed as a place to learn new things, talk about navigating the world, dealing with mental health, and just life in general. I'm your host, Sam Preston, and thank you so much for being here. Now, let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope you're doing well and, just having a good week. And if not, then I kind of hope you're using the weekend to reset, pick yourself back up, get back at it. And maybe this podcast is kind of the perfect way to do it. If you're hanging out at home and you're thinking, there's so much to do, I haven't done anything I planned this week, that's okay because you're sitting down, you're listening to a nice little podcast. And something we are going to talk about today a bit is achieving your goals and things like that, pretty much. So, with that, I'm going to segue a little just into having today's guest introduce herself.
Hi guys, I am Sedona. I am from the UK. I am currently a biomedical student at the University of Bath. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
I am not like a science person at all. So, anytime somebody is like, I'm in some medical bio thing, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard.
Do you know what you want to do when you're done?
I'm not 100% sure yet, but I know that I'd quite like to go into research. My decision to start studying biomedicine kind of came from for a while. I wanted to do just pure medicine and become a doctor, but my reasoning behind that was that being a doctor, you can help a few people, you help your patients. But if you don't agree with the treatment pathway, there's literally nothing you can do. Whereas working in research, you can help so many more people because you're altering those treatment options and discovering new treatment options. So that was kind of why I chose biomedicine over medicine, actually.
What's really funny is you're actually not the first person who's kind of told me that type of story
Really?
where they've like gone into some medical field being like, I want to be a doctor or a nurse or a surgeon. And then halfway through, they were kind of like, actually, I like the research portion better. I have more freedom there and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I also realized that I always, whenever people tell me their degree, I ask them, like, what do you want to do? And I always used to hate that question because I had no clue what I wanted to do. And they'd ask me, and I'd be like, well, I don't know. And they'd be like, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I change my
Um,
mind all the time as well. Actually, at the dinner table last night, my brother was giving us a briefing of his whole life plan through education. And I think the end goal is wanting to be prime minister. And I'm kind of sat there thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want to do. But I change my mind an awful lot, which probably isn't helping. But yeah, I'm just trying to kind of explore different options at the moment and see which one I enjoy the most. But obviously that's quite difficult when I'm wanting to do everything.
I know what you mean. I like hit one point in high school where I was bouncing back and forth between like complete like 180s of a career. I was like, I could be a historian and like work in museums. And then I was like, or I could be a lawyer. And I'm looking back on it now and I'm like, honey, you just have to pick one and go with it. Like,
It's so hard to pick one though, because with the education system, you kind of have to know what you want to do from the age of 15, because 15 is when you start choosing your options of what you want to do for GCSE, what you want to do
yeah,
for A level, what degree you want to do. And it's like if you choose the wrong things when you're 15, that really cuts off your options. And it's just such a weird system. And if people have like parents that are doctors or lawyers, they're much more likely to go into it. But making those decisions at such a young age, because even if you start a degree and you're like, do you know what, I actually don't like this, but then you don't have the A levels, you don't have the GCSEs to do a different degree, which makes absolutely zero sense.
right. I feel like you're too young at 15 to be deciding what
Exactly.
you're doing for the rest of your life.
Yeah, my sister's doing it at the moment. She's just chosen her GCSEs and she's 14 years old. How I don't know how you're meant to know what
No.
you do.
And like it's because after a while, like even when you're older, it's obviously not impossible to go back and change it.
Yeah.
But because you've been like, if you change your mind at 20, you've been working towards this career for the last 5 years.
Hmm.
Like it is so hard to switch over.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
by the time you've switched over and you're actually on your way to your own career, you're like almost in your 30s. And it's like,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. I mean, I had a bit of an it. I didn't go to university until how old was I? 22, 21 or 22. So everyone else who was a fresher were like 17, 18. So, and a lot of people do change their mind at that age, about 18, 19. But because I have gone to uni so much older than everyone else, I'm a bit more reluctant to think about changing my mind with my degree choice.
I know what you mean. It's you sit there and you're like, I've put so much time, like I'm so much like I've grown so much. I'm at such like not even an old age, but like you almost consider yourself an old age.
Yeah.
And then it's like, do I really want to put all of this work down the drain?
Mm.
And it's like, well, if it's gonna make you happy, it's kind of worth it to put the last however many years behind you and like restart.
Yeah. Yeah. Restarting is difficult once you've got to university, especially with the costs.
Yes.
University is
Oh my God.
expensive.
Right? I know there's so many factors where it's like time and cost
Mhm.
and all of these things, and it's like I know this change would make me so much happier, but can I even do it? Is it even worth it? Yeah, there was a good couple times where I did English and psych in university, and there was a good couple times I really debated changing and like had to fully like sit down and I ranted to my parents or my friends and I was like, but I've put so much effort in and it feels like it's all a waste and like is it even worth it to restart? And I'm glad I didn't because some of the careers that I was debating at the time, I'm looking back and I'm like, no, those were not for me. But like there's so much to consider. Okay, I want to kind of talk about what we came here for essentially, and that's your TED Talk, which is like a huge accomplishment. First off, congratulations.
Thank
I know
you.
you did it quite a while ago. I can't remember how
It
far
was only
back
a
you did
year
it.
ago. It was a year ago.
Okay. I don't know why I thought it was longer than that for some reason. A year feels long.
Yeah.
What your TED Talk was called Back from the Brink, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to kind of speak to what it was about a little bit?
Um, so essentially, it was kind of about my own journey through the mental health system and my experiences of being unwell. I kind of touched on the abuse within hospitals and how it's not a particularly therapeutic environment. And then I kind of switched back to my achievements in getting out of that system. And I think it was a very exposing topic and an exposing talk. However, it's the same attitude I have to kind of the social medias and the stuff I post about recovery, in that a lot of people who have been through what I've been through don't make it out alive. They don't make it out alive or they don't get out of hospital. So it's very rare for someone to have been through everything that I've been through and one, still be alive, and two, be living a life outside of hospital. So both the TED Talk and the stuff I do online on social media, both are to kind of highlight that recovery is possible and getting out of those places that aren't particularly therapeutic and kind of can seem like a prison sometimes, but getting out is possible. Like it's really hard and you have to put a huge amount of work in, but it is possible.
It's always so sad when like I see people talking who are going through I guess this like applies to almost anything, but like when they're going through something with their mental health and it's them or even sometimes like the professionals they talk to who are just so pessimistic about recovery and you see them being told or them saying, and they're like, I'm never going to recover. Like, there's no hope for me. And it's like, no, there's hope. You just kind of have to have somebody believe in you.
Yeah, some of the units, the mental health units, are literally like prisons. People have been there for 10 years, and the doctors and nurses and everyone are making zero effort into trying to get these people out and into the community. And it's not a life in there. You can't have anything. You've got a prison mattress, a prison toilet, not allowed anything in the communal areas. All the sofas are ridiculously heavy, so they can't be thrown around. And yeah, I've been to quite a few where it's kind of like just locking people up and throwing away the key, and there's no therapeutic intervention. It's literally just containment, which obviously isn't therapeutic. But saying that, a lot of units are different. I mean, I've been about 10 different mental health wards, probably more, and obviously they're all quite different. But the ones that are very secure and people have been there for so long, it really does feel like a prison. There's no hope in there. There's no aim to get people out, and it's just about keeping people alive. Unfortunately, that's not really how it should be. But I would say it's sometimes what's needed. But at the same time, there's no point in containing people if you're not going to change how things are working cognitively, and people are just going to lose hope, really.
Yeah, like the point of going to a treatment center is to literally get treated. Like it's in the name, treatment. And it's so heartbreaking when you go in and you see patients who have been given up on, who maybe have been there a little longer than, the average patient stays. And to just like see this person who has so much potential and can absolutely get better and get out of there. And it's just that like everyone's essentially given up hope on them.
Yeah, I've been really lucky because my family have always been super supportive. And I know not everyone has that, but the only thing that got me really out of these very secure places was the support from my parents. And I also had a really, really good solicitor. And I think without them, I wouldn't have got out of these places. Like they really, really fought my corner. And talking about the solicitor, actually, so everyone who's detained under the Mental Health Act, I don't know if it's the same where you are, but in the UK, everyone who's detained under the Mental Health Act, so sectioned, actually has the right to have a free solicitor. And people don't know that, but solicitors obviously really well minded anyway. I was very, very lucky with who I had as my solicitor, but she fought for me so much. And she was in contact with my parents, and I think the way she approached the situation, and then my parents as well, really pushing, trying to contact people who could help, because my moving around hospitals and between different security levels was really quite messed up. I was in places that I shouldn't have been. For example, being in an adult medium secure unit when I was a child. So
Wow.
that is, I don't even know if it's legal or not, but it's obviously not very good. Like that ward was just, it was full of people who'd committed crimes, like arsonists, GBH, like it was just, wait, I mean, GBH is like gross bodily harm.
Okay,
um,
fair.
yeah, so really not not only were these people high risk to themselves, but they were high risk to other people as well. And I was 16 or 17, shouldn't have been there. And that was the one I was talking about that was very much locking up and throwing away the key. But the only reason I got out of there was because of my parents and because of my solicitor. So I'm very lucky that I had that. But I do realize that not everyone has that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've always been big, especially when I talk about my own mental health journey and talking about specifically my parents and like my friends and stuff and how supportive they were and how big of a support system I had. And like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I was super lucky, and not everybody has that. And it makes such a big difference. because a lot of the time you're at a point where you don't even believe in yourself. And then you have the support system backing you up who has enough belief for you like three or four times over. And it's like you look back and you're like, God, if nobody believed in me back then, like I don't even know like if I would have made it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with everything that my parents have been through with me as well, like a huge, huge amount of trauma, and the fact that they kind of stuck around and kept fighting for me, even after everything that I've done and put them through, is really special. I can see your cat behind you.
All right. Hi. You made your appearance. You're happy? I mean, pets were included in my support system.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I have a family dog who actually I remember part of my motivation when I was in treatment was they wouldn't let her come visit me. And I was just like, I can't stand not seeing my dog. I have to like get out of here to go see my like little puppy who I miss so much. And they won't even like, I remember at one point my parents were considering like almost kind of, I don't even like smuggling her in because I was like, honestly, I think the most torn up I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I think I was more torn up about not seeing my dog than anything.
That's a good motivation though to get back
Right?
to that. Because when was it? I think it was when I first started going to adult wards. So my cat had kittens and I
Oh,
kept one of them. And I actually got her a therapy animal qualification. So she had a therapy animal certificate. So I actually took her everywhere with me. She had this little backpack that she would go in, and
stop.
she'd literally spend all day every day with me going out. Like I'd take her to therapy, I'd take her out for coffee, and everyone loved her. And once I was in like once I'd been admitted to the long, long admission, my family would bring her in her little bag to see me. And because of her therapy animal status, she could come into hospitals as well, which was really
Oh
nice.
my
And she was just
gosh.
so well behaved, really cuddly, and it was really nice actually, but she is not a therapy cat anymore. I think she's probably traumatized by being in so many hospitals.
Oh no. It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God, but that's so nice because then like you got to see her whenever you were away, which like must have been so nice.
Yeah, and I've always really wanted a dog. And so this was the closest I put on the lead and harness.
You know what's really funny actually is I posted a story, I think literally
I
like
saw it.
a day or two ago, yeah,
Is that
and
with
it
that
was like
cat
taking my
behind
dog
you?
on a walk.
Is that with the
Yeah,
cat?
yeah, that's her. Yeah.
Did she like the
No,
lead and the harness?
you know what? She wasn't a huge fan of it at first, and then I think she realized that like when it goes on, that's when she gets to go outside,
Yeah.
which like she'll sit and stare at the window like the entire day. And I think the moment she pieced that together, suddenly she was like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever done."
Oh, that's really cute. That's really cute.
But yeah, literally like the other day was just like posted story and was like taking my dog on a walk, and it was literally my cat.
I did see that.
And honestly, she likes belly rubs. I've met cats who like to play fetch. They're close enough to a
What?
dog. Like
Oh my gosh.
watching a cat, like as somebody who grew up with dogs and now is living with a bunch of cats, watching cats play fetch is like the funniest thing to me.
They actually do it?
One of my old roommates' cats would literally like pick up a toy and bring it to you and just drop it at your feet and sit and stare at you and just wait for you to throw it.
Oh wow.
She loved it. I don't know. She was kind of like a bit of like a cuckoo cat, but we love her. We got like a little bit off topic from that
Yeah.
TED talk, kind of, but
Yeah, we can go back to my TED talk.
what kind of inspired you to want to do one?
So it all started when I was in hospital, I'd say probably about 4 or 5 years ago from now. Um, and I was on 3 to 1, so I had 3 members of staff arm's length away from me at all times. And I was writing a list of like my ultimate life goals. And it was things like go to university, move into my own place, obviously get out of hospital, play tennis, like compete properly again. Um, and then there were a few things that, well, I assumed that university was going to be something that was very far away and would take a while. And then I also put on that list do a TED talk. And that was the kind of main thing that I thought that is really far away. That's kind of an unrealistic goal. But dragging these goals together out of a brain that was so like intent on self-destruction and harming myself and not really anything to do with recovery, not anything to do with healing. And so writing that list was difficult, and I didn't really believe that any of it was going to be true. And then first year of university, I saw a advert for auditions for the TED Talk because they were hosting a TED event at the university. And I just thought, okay, well, we can give it a go. And I genuinely did not expect to get through the shortlist and then the audition stage. And yeah, so suddenly I was doing a TED Talk, and I never expected it to happen that quickly. Like, I don't even think I'd been out of hospital for a full year when I decided to do that. But it was a tough process. At first I was under the impression that I'd be speaking on the spot for 20 minutes, which I don't know, that was a lot. And I remember
That would terrify me.
yeah, and I went to a rehearsal and I tried to talk for 20 minutes and I ended up speaking for 40. And there was just zero structure in what I'd said. I was just rambling constantly. And then with a couple of weeks to go before the actual event, I was told, no, you have to write the whole thing and we have to submit it to TEDx before the event so that they could
Oh
like approve.
God.
And I went, oh my gosh, I've got to write a 20-minute speech and memorize it, which was obviously difficult, but I really enjoy writing. I really enjoy it. And then obviously do enjoy public speaking as well. And even though it was so anxiety provoking, obviously getting up on a stage and talking after, especially after so many years with such severe anxiety, was kind of terrifying. But I knew how important it was to the younger Sedona who was in hospital with absolutely zero hope. So I did it for her, and I was like, this is a big thing for me, and it's also a really big thing for the people who've supported me. And I just love the fact that the staff that I worked with in or worked with me in hospital have also seen it and give me some really helpful feedback, and they're happy to see what I'm achieving now. And yeah, I wanted to show myself that I could achieve it too. And it was, like I said, so much anxiety, so stressful, but I literally came off the stage and I was so shaky, but I came off the stage and I actually nearly cried because I was so proud of myself for what I'd done.
It's like that was the one thing on your list that you were just like, no, like that's so far. And then there you were, like not even a year out, already doing it.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing to do, especially like the older I get, is doing things for my younger self. And I don't think people realize like when you do even the smallest thing and you kind of almost like dedicate it to your younger self, you have such a sense of achievement through it
Yeah.
because you're looking at this young kid who essentially thought they weren't going to make it past the year, and you're out and you're doing something as amazing as a TED Talk, and you're showing all of these people this raw, emotional, essentially traumatic side of you. And you're sitting there and, like, I don't know about you, but some of the stuff that I do, my younger self would never have done. She would have had a heart attack before she'd done any of it.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, it's really important being able to look at your younger self and be like, okay, you couldn't do it then, but you can do it now.
Yeah. And it's insane to look at that growth. And you also don't realize it sometimes how much you've grown until you're up on a stage doing a TED Talk
Yeah.
and you're realizing like that was a goal you accomplished.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, like take a step back and just appreciate it for a moment because that's insane, you know?
Yeah.
I've also like found goal setting when you're kind of in the depths of your mental illness is like such almost, I don't want to call it a funny thing, but to me, it's like looking back on it now, I'm just like, I kind of did similarly where I set myself a bunch of goals and there were a couple on there that I was just like, this is insane. Like, what are you thinking, Sam? This is never gonna happen. But it like gave me something to look forward to. And it gave me almost a purpose to move forward of being like, okay, yeah, this one goal is absolutely insane, but wouldn't it be so cool if you actually did it?
Yeah, I think the goal setting stuff is really important. And especially when I was in hospital, they really encouraged people to, well, in certain wards that were more effective with the therapeutic approaches. But what I've found quite useful is doing the short term, medium, long term goals. So in a few of the hospitals I was in, the bedrooms had a huge like chalk wall, and I would always have my goals on there and a little box to tick them off as I went along. And there was a point where the short term goals were things like get off 3 to 1, as in three members of staff all times. Things like be allowed pens, be allowed my bedding, which obviously kind of seems like basic human rights stuff, but
Yeah.
that was the goal at the time. And I guess that the TED talk was probably very much a long term maybe
I was
goal.
about to ask. I was
Yeah.
like, was TED Talk under long term?
Yes, very long. I mean, also on that long term list was publishing my book. So I've actually written a book. It's what am I on now? 75,000 words. A non fiction book. So I've pretty much written the whole thing. But I am now rewriting the whole thing as a fiction. So I've got that to
Wow.
work on too, but we'll see where that goes. Um, but yeah, the whole time I was in hospital, actually, I wrote something like a journal every day because even though things were really, really hard, at the back of my mind, I just thought if I record this whole experience and I do get out the other side, I can put this all into a book and other people can see it and hopefully get some hope out of that because obviously like things were really really bad. And even though I really hated everything and was really really struggling, I guess that that writing was a teeny tiny part of me that thought maybe I'll get out, or even someone will find this and someone else will be able to share my story. But yeah, I'm in the process of putting all that together.
Which is crazy that like there's so much you're accomplishing now that like we're in your long-term goals.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I've made it far enough to be accomplishing my long-term goals.
Yeah.
Which like, I mean, in all honesty, TED Talk one could have been like a medium or short-term goal.
Yeah.
But
I just didn't expect it to happen that
yeah,
soon.
those are kind of the best ones though, when you don't expect it to happen and it still kind of comes your way anyway. It's just like meant to be in that moment.
Yeah.
What like I know you kind of touched on the process of prepping yourself for the TED Talk, but how did you decide what you did and didn't want to talk about? I feel like I wouldn't be able to make that decision at all.
Yeah, so I did quite a few drafts. It took a while to decide on the final one, but there were a few key things that I really wanted to include, especially the beginning bit about I say waking up in a coma, but being my brain working in a coma, but my body what not working. So I kind of just made a list of the important things that I really, really wanted to include. But like I said, I really enjoy writing, so it comes kind of quite naturally to me. So yeah, I just kind of went from there with what I wanted to include. But it was quite challenging to cut out the things that would be quite difficult for an audience to hear, because you really do have to be conscious. There's quite a fine line between what's appropriate and what's not. And it was constantly in my mind that what would I be okay with hearing? If someone else was talking, what would I be okay with hearing? What would be too much to handle? So that's quite challenging to filter that through. But I got loads of people to proofread it. So I got my family to proofread it. I got my friends, I got my boyfriend. So that helped me kind of cut it down to something that was, I guess, partially shocking, but also manageable for an audience to hear.
Yeah, there's a balance between trying to be really like raw and open with people and like help them understand and experience, and also trying not to go too far. I
Yeah.
mean, them for them and then also yourself, of like, there, do I want to relive this experience and share it with all of these people? And like, that's not a bad thing, but there's just like, I feel like, I don't know about you, I feel like there's some things that I just kind of think and I'm like, I'm not even ready to share those. Kind of have to find that balance between sharing enough to help get the message across and not sharing too much as to kind of, I mean, either trigger people or just make, I want to say make them uncomfortable, and that's not the word I'm looking for, but I feel like you kind of get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so with my social media it's the same, and it's, I guess you don't want to trigger people, but you also, there's some things that kind of is potentially painful and even somewhat embarrassing, stuff that you've done or been through. So there are certain things that I will never share. Um, and I guess I also do worry about how people see me. And if someone's meeting me for the first time and they have a look at my TikTok or my Instagram and they make those judgments. But at the same time, I know what I do it for. I do it to help people. And I know not everyone's going to agree with that. And that's fine. That's not really my problem. That's their problem. And I really love the let them theory when it comes to this, because if I'm comfortable with what I'm posting and I know what the end goal is, then that's fine. And if people are going to make judgments, that's not really my problem. So it's just about letting them think what they want to think. And I guess if it affects them or they don't agree with it, then I'd rather they spoke to me up front about it and explained, so that then in the future I can work from that feedback. But
Yeah, I know what
yeah,
you
you have
mean.
to be careful.
Yeah, like, there's such a good thing I find with social media where it's so vast that if you do come across something that makes you uncomfortable or you don't quite agree with, you don't even necessarily have to get into a confrontation with the person. You can just kind of leave that page and, like, like, every content is not for every person.
I actually find a lot of the mental health content on TikTok, for example, quite difficult to see, because people, that line we were talking about earlier between what's appropriate and what's not, I think some people, their whole account is crossing that line, and
Hmm.
it's not helpful to see. And I am constantly scrolling through and clicking not interested, not interested, because
Yeah.
it's not helpful. And I know I'm not in hospital anymore, and I was going to say I'm not vulnerable, but I do have periods when I'm very vulnerable and sensitive. But sometimes seeing that stuff in hospital is a bit safer, because if it upsets you, if it triggers you, then you've got people around you to support you. But anyway, the content on TikTok is just not filtered sometimes. And I have to be, even now, careful with what I do see. And when I am obviously posting my own stuff, I'm like, if someone else posted this, would I be okay with that? Or is it going to trigger me the same way that other people's content triggers me? But the culture within TikTok with regards to mental health is so toxic. It is so, so toxic. And
It's so poorly filtered.
yeah,
Like,
it hurts me to see because for it kind of reminds me of a psych ward in that you see other people's behavior and you think,
mhm.
oh, this isn't me, by the way, I'm just saying theoretically.
Yeah.
And you see these things that other people are doing and you're like, okay, maybe I should try that. Or okay, this person's sick but I want to be sicker than them. Or with eating disorders, it's like, oh, this person's skinny but I want to be skinnier than them. And that's very much the culture within hospitals, especially eating disorder units. It's like, okay, that person weighs less than me, so I need to lose weight more.
Yeah.
Or that person's eating less than me, so I need to eat less. And it's like constantly picking up behaviors from other people. But now it's easier because now that is how TikTok works, which is really quite
It's
disturbing.
24/7 access too. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I was first in hospital, that environment within there is now the environment of TikTok. And I just think, how the hell did this happen?
and there's a wider range too, because there's people out there who are maybe on a bit of a downward spiral, or they're kind of on that
Yeah.
cusp of like, and then they see all of this stuff and they're taking it in, and maybe they're not in a treatment center or they're not in a good supportive environment, and they take this stuff in, and they compare, they try to compete and all of this stuff, and it's just a wide range of people now.
Yeah, even now for me, like I'm obviously doing better, but things aren't perfect. And if I am struggling and I'm feeling quite sensitive, which happens quite a lot, but and I see these things on TikTok, it really, really triggers me. It really, really upsets me. It makes urges worse. It makes anxiety worse. And so I don't even want to think how that would affect someone who's in a much more vulnerable position than me.
Well, it's kind of like a good reminder that I think sometimes people, I notice it a lot, actually, quite a lot, where maybe you're in hospital, or you're in recovery, and after like a couple months, or when you get out or something, people immediately are just like, you're cured, you're fixed, all of your problems have gone away. And I feel like it's a good testament to be like, no, you can be in a good headspace and you can kind of be doing okay, but it's mental health and recovery is still a fluctuating thing, that you're gonna have your, like, not every day is good. You're still gonna have your bad days.
Yeah, exactly. And most people look at me now and they just assume, okay, she's better. She's not in hospital anymore. And I'm like, it's so much deeper than that. And
Hmm.
what frustrates me the most is that I still have a diagnosis of anorexia, but I'm a healthy weight now. I eat what I need to eat. Mentally, it's still such a huge challenge, but I get zero help with it because I'm not underweight. And people around me, and it's on social media as well, actually, they're like, okay, well, she's fine now because she's healthy, she's not being tube fed. And I understand kind of the severity of my eating disorder when I was being tube fed was actually almost fatal. And so seeing me now compared to them, they're like, oh, she's better. And although it's, this is hard for me to say, although it's great that I'm a healthy weight and that I'm eating what I need to, I'd say actually mentally it's harder than when you're not eating. Because when you're not eating and when you're losing weight, you're listening to those eating disorder thoughts. You're not fighting them. And so now I have to fight them through every single bit of food I eat. I have to fight them through avoiding standing on scales, looking at myself in the mirror. And so I still have all those struggles, but it's just impossible to get any sort of therapeutic intervention because my weight's not low, which is ridiculous. That doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, so I've still got that diagnosis, and but no treatment with that.
No, I know what you mean, where it's like eating disorders to people are such an appearance and weight specific illness that the moment, like, I know so many people who struggle with an eating disorder who have never been underweight,
Yeah,
but for some, like, sorry for my swearing, but just some fucking reason, to people that means you never suffered.
yeah. It's just so misunderstood.
I try so hard to put it out there that they're a mental illness, and that means they're like, I was about to say in your head, and that sounds so insanely toxic to be like, it's all in your head. But like in the least toxic way, like everything happens mentally for the
Yeah,
mental illness.
yeah. There's
And
plenty of physical stuff that comes alongside it, but
yeah,
that's not the root problem. Like you
no, those are the side effects.
exactly, like you can hold, well, this is what happened with me, but you can hold someone down, restrain them, force a feeding tube down their nose and force them to eat, but that's not going to solve the problem. That's going to take someone out of the critical zone of not being well and force them to eat, obviously. And I just want to point out that this doesn't happen for every eating disorder. It's very, 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 very rare. And I'm just saying it because that was my experience. But you can make what I'm trying to say basically is that you can make someone eat, you can make someone gain weight, but that's not going to solve the root problem. That's not going to solve the cognitions and the mental association with the relationship with food and weight and body image. So the physical stuff is literally just a like comorbid, what's the word? Comorbidity, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe that sounds about right. But I know what you mean, yeah. Because I don't know, there's so many people I know, and like I know everybody's story is different and everybody goes through things differently. But there's just so many people I know who never, quote unquote, looked unhealthy. And
Yeah.
it's like you can look your best. You can look the best and the brightest you've looked your entire life, and you could be going through the worst things mentally. And that's what like bothers me, is where people and like mental health influencers or like advocators that I see talk about their journey, and they're like, well, example, got out of hospice,
Mm,
or got out of the hospital and got out of this treatment center. And people are like, well, okay, you must be cured and you must be doing great. And it's like, no, I'm still struggling. Yes, I'm better than I was before,
mm.
but that doesn't mean I'm better, period.
Yeah, I think it's quite hard for people to understand. I mean, this is me trying to understand how other people understand, but
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, well, you go on holiday, you're at university, so surely you're fine." Um, and that's just not the case. I'm going on holiday and I'm traveling because I missed out on it for years, and now I've got such a more stable support network. And for example, my boyfriend is very good at like managing both the physical health stuff and the mental health stuff. So I travel with him, and he's super supportive and knows how to help with. I mean, actually, it's more physical health stuff now. I have epilepsy as well, so I've got to be careful when it comes to traveling. But I've just gone off on a tangent about traveling here. Anyway, let's go back to what I
No, go for it, honestly.
basically, yeah, so people see that I'm traveling, that I'm at uni, and that must mean that I'm completely better. And I actually used to get really offended when people said, "Oh, you look well, you look healthy," because in my head that meant, okay, I look big, I look fat. That's why people are saying that. And even now, it's kind of challenging, but I'm learning to understand that that doesn't mean fat, that doesn't mean big. That, yeah, I've gained weight, and I'm almost learning to accept that. I don't know if I'll ever be happy with my weight again or my body again. I mean, hopefully someday. That would be great if someday that could happen. But it's just a very long process of being able to work on those things.
I know I had to come to terms at one point that people, when they said, like, you look good, you look healthy, didn't mean it as an insult. And they genuinely, like, were being nice and giving me a compliment and being like, oh, like, actually, like, like, you look better.
Yeah.
We got off topic again. But, like, I'm totally okay with that. Sometimes, like, getting off topic is really nice and it, like, leads to some good things. But yeah, so do you want to do any more TED Talks in the future, or is that kind of your one and done scenario?
I'd love to do more. I really would. I kind of gave it a miss this year because I just wanted to give someone else a chance. No, I'm joking. Well, I mean, I'm not joking in that I want other people to have a chance, but I thought, yeah, let's have a little break. And I do really want to do another one in the future. But I'm thinking of branching out and maybe doing it somewhere else other than Bath.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, I would love to do another one.
Do you think you'd kind of do like the same TED Talk, or would you change it up a bit?
No, I'd do a completely new one, I think. But there's just so many topics to cover. I'd probably keep the theme of my own journey, my own experiences, because I will always want to be spreading awareness for that stuff and hopefully even inciting some change into the mental health system. So it's kind of, for me, it's kind of an exposure process of exposing the how shocking it is in those wards and how shockingly treated people are under section under the Mental Health Act. So I just want to carry on that theme, but yeah, I'd do completely new speeches, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair because time goes on and you change and you grow and
Hmm.
things change every day. Like,
Yeah.
that's totally fair. I believe that's pretty much all the stuff I had in mind to talk about.
Hmm.
I assume like your TED Talk is somewhere online that people can watch.
It is on YouTube. It's just Back from the Brink, I think is the title of the video, or just Sedona Jameson. It'll be there.
Good to know. And that book sometime soon will come out,
Yes,
I hope.
sometime in the future, hopefully.
Amazing. I look forward to it. Good luck with that.
You.
I end my episodes by usually giving listeners an affirmation. If you have anything in mind, I would love to hear it.
Um, and like the moon, we must go through phases of emptiness to be full again.
Beautiful. That's amazing. We're nature
Yeah,
and we have cycles and we go through things and we grow and that's okay.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your TED Talk and your experiences and everything. It was very eye-opening, very insightful. I really appreciate it. Where can listeners find you if they're looking for you anywhere?
On Instagram, I am SSEDONAA. TikTok, the same, but with a one after. Um, yeah, I'd say those are the main two.
Amazing. So they can check you out Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube for that TED
Yes.
Talk that we have been talking about for the last pretty much 50-ish minutes or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on, and thank you to everybody who tuned in. Really appreciate it, and I hope you do go check Sedona out, learn a bit about more about her journey and just the insightful things that she always has to say. And until next time, take care of yourselves, have an amazing week, and I don't know, go be happy. Bye, everyone.